Dail Rundown with me, Dan Morfitt, Ashleigh Talbot and Polly Checkland. The future is arriving. In 2021, car manufacturer Ford has said it will mass produce a fully autonomous self-driving car without a steering wheel by the year 2021. The bold ambition was outlined by the country's president at an expo earlier today. The firm said that this car will be more like an Uber-like ride-sharing service, but one that doesn't require a human driver. Ford's owners have said, as you can imagine, the experience inside a vehicle where you don't have to take control changes everything. So, are we excited or afraid of autonomous cars?
Can it be both? Because I mean, it makes sense. Although, just to say though, I'm quite sure that I was flicking through some. I definitely was flicking through some old science fiction sort of pulp magazine things from the 50s, and they were also saying, you know, everyone will have a Ford driverless car by 2021 because it sounds like a really futuristic year, I think, or at least it did in the 50s.
It used to be the year 2000. That used to be futuristic, and
whereas if you chose an odd number like 2021 or 2001, you threw the odd curveball essentially. But leaving that aside, it does make sense, doesn't it? In a sense, it's kind of like it's a drone that people get inside and travel around, and it also makes sense for that to not necessarily be everybody has their own driverless car, but imagine the public transport system being run on that sort of basis. For example, I think that might be what they're thinking of, and as well as freight and stuff as well. So like kind of things that have got
A to B destination, doesn't need to do any
and is easily monetized
detouring,
is the thing. Whereas selling a driverless car to everybody would probably require a significant amount of infrastructure. Whereas if companies are willing to pay for it and say, yeah, we'll use your driverless lorries to ship our stuff.
The problem with that being, of course, that that does a whole bunch of people out of jobs.
Yes.
And I last time I was on the show was talking a bit about automation and technology and how the workforce and labour is going to kind of fit in with that, and what we do about the fact that people are being replaced by algorithms, and not that that's by definition a bad thing. I mean, replacing people is, but what we do about that kind of deficit in jobs, if
there's
it
things
does
like the
come about.
universal living benefits that the Swiss have already voted against, where everybody gets a minimum set wage, as it were, just for living. Because jobs will be taken by our robot overlords very, very soon. I mean,
it feels to me more as though we need to be thinking about what people's role is in the future and where jobs lie. And there obviously are jobs, and particularly in the development of tech rather than in the use of machines. And I think that's interesting. I mean, with this story, I'm mainly concerned what happens to like Bond and Bourne car chases, because I can't imagine an automated vehicle that doesn't go more than 30 miles an hour, which is what they're saying. So I'm also like, does this mean that speeding is now out?
That's it, no more.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Come on, can you imagine Bourne in this kind of like automated thing that's going along? And he's
no steering wheel.
No, he's just sitting there, like tweeting?
Well, I guess the excitement would be as James Bond tries to hack the car's security features.
Okay.
What would happen with Clarkson?
You've seen the Minority Report, haven't you? Okay, because that...
where the sliding...
Yeah, they basically have what this is talking about, which I think is more like a sort of usable taxi service where ownership changes, and it's kind of a lending thing, which I think is so interesting that a car company is coming up with something that almost makes or it changes the kind of consumer dynamic.
Changes what they're producing and why they're producing it. Do you think that Ford are a little bit late to the game, because Tesla's cars can already do some part of autonomous driving with their autopilot feature? Google have been investing in this technology for the last decade now, and there's trials that are going to be happening in Milton Keynes soon. By the looks of it, Britain's going to be quite a world leader in autonomous cars. Ford coming to the game, does it change it because of a major manufacturer saying, yes, we're going to do this?
Well, I think it's interesting that they haven't allied themselves with Google or with Apple.
They've said, we're going to do our own thing.
We're going to do our own thing. Tesla, I think, is slightly different because they're working with semi-autonomous cars, which Ford isn't really interested in, partly because there's quite a lot of safety issues with semi-autonomous ones in terms of taking back control. But
there's already been a couple of deaths related to it that are under investigation by the American authorities. Are you excited though? Because I'm a bit like Ashleigh. half excited, half terrified of being able to get into a car and it'll drive me somewhere. It's like, it is Uber, but you don't have to wait 4 minutes for them to turn up.
Well, I mean, perhaps, I suppose it depends on where you are. But, I mean, the way Ford are talking about it, and it is interesting that we say that now that they've announced that they're throwing their hat into the ring. I mean, Google are a tech company, and Tesla are quite specifically, they're quite new in that sense, aren't they? And they do a specific thing of electric cars. Ford have been around for like over 100 years now by this point, and so they've got quite a lot of expertise with the whole making a car thing, and who knows, maybe that'll be quite helpful for them. But the way they're phrasing it is like, oh, this is the next great leap forward. And so if this is a thing that takes off, then we're going to be talking about it in terms of a great leap forward. And unfortunately, whenever you get any great leap forward, be it the printing press or, you know, a better way to plough your field, people are going to have to find.
Well, the worst thing is with self-driving cars, Clarkson, Hammond and May will all be out of a job.
What a shame.
Yeah, what a great shame.
Let's just think about them for a second. And we're done. Looking at our last story for now, UKIP members may leave the party following recent infighting, its chairman in Wales has said. Party insiders says that there's a feeling amongst UKIP that it's almost unravelling, involving rows about the Welsh leader Nathan Gill, who is double jobbing, and the leadership election to succeed Nigel Farage. Mr Gill revealed he was leaving the UKIP's assembly group to sit as an independent, and UKIP members in Wales were due to vote on whether Mr Gill should be allowed to continue to serve as both an MEP in the European Parliament and as an AM in the Welsh Assembly. So, could this be the end of UKIP, and would that be a good thing?
I mean, personally, politically, the end of UKIP, yes, is a good thing. I think I don't have much truck for the kind of views that it
surely
puts
UKIP's
forward.
job is over and done with. Their whole point was to get Britain out of Europe.
But I love how they get Britain out and then go, whoop, guys, you guys deal with this now. That's been pretty across the board for the people who took us out.
Pretty much.
For fairness and balance with UKIP, they've managed to unite a demographic that Labour have effectively lost. Is that fair to say?
I don't know about uniting that. I know that they do represent a section of people. I'm interested in the tactics that you've used with which to do that, and particularly the messaging around something like Brexit, which was, I mean, I haven't seen anything like it since the 1980s, the use of posters with the now infamous Trail of People. What I find really interesting is how Labour and UKIP's leadership contrast to the Conservative one, which was so ruthlessly efficient.
Well, that's
not
them.
To hit a stereotype, but it's like, you know, it was just
heads rolled, and then so we have a new PM now.
So fast, and now she's in power and she's doing her thing. And I am not a kind of Conservative follower, but it is kind of impressive how they just got on. I mean, I don't.
It's almost admirable,
policies, but it's you know.
Almost. It's like, you know, it's like getting smacked over the head with a piece of IKEA furniture. I mean, it really hurts, but you have to admire the work that's gone into it.
The craftsmanship.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird, this whole unravelling of UKIP, because they had one candidate who wasn't allowed to stand because his papers were 17 minutes late. Nobody knows anybody else who's standing. Does it really show that UKIP before was really just the cult of Farage?
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I think, and that's. They never claim to be anything else, but the problem is that if UKIP disintegrates, essentially UKIP came along around about the time that Nick Griffin sort of metaphorically urinated all over himself, and the BNP just kind of collapsed into infighting. They don't seem to be around anymore. If UKIP go the same way, fine, but the far right will be along again. They're like a hydra. Essentially, you cut the head off one, and they just spring up like weeds. So yes, fine, the party itself will no longer exist, but that viewpoint and that kind of anti-immigration, racist, bigoted mindset will be We'll be with us for a long time.
That's your opinion, but
yes.
But there just seems so much confusion about the rules as well with all of this. Like the Labour leadership, I'm sorry, but the yo-yo between these people can vote and these people can't vote. And
Let's get the High Court
involved.
involved.
You paid 25 quid, and then now what happens to the 25 quid that you like? It's in shambles, and I think a lot of Labour supporters are torn between trying to work out who they back and what the right route for the party is, whilst also being actually quite angry and disappointed that at the point at which we've just had a major change of direction as a country that a lot of Labour supporters weren't in support of, we don't have a Labour voice. Really.
Well, at least
There's
Labour
no opposition.
At least Labour have just 2 candidates running. UKIP
5,
have around
there?
5,
There's 5,
and nobody knows really who they are publicly. And some have come out and said we're going to ban the hijab, we're going to ban the burqa, and
I refer you to my previous comments.
okay, right.
But also I love that one of the people who are running for it has said that she's not going to turn up to the thing with party members in Newport. She's doing her own Meet Diane event.
Politics.
Yeah.
We really get the politicians we deserve. Yeah. And who was it that said that if people really want to become a politician, it really shows that they shouldn't become a politician at all?
Pretty much. I think it was Plato.
I think
that said that, and no one's been listening since.
Right, that's all we can have for this time in the show because we've gone on and on. But next we'll be back with regular contributor Cal Doughty to tell us about the phenomenon that is Pokemon Go. Yes, we cover everything on the Daily Rundown. We return in a couple of minutes' time, so keep it on That's Manchester here on Channel 7.